Welcome to episode 229 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We're amateur astronomers who love looking up the night sky, and this podcast is for anyone else who likes going out under the stars. Yeah, we keep just chatting, Shane, and then it's like, might as well just record this. And we've been chatting a lot about your Pencilborg and the comet catcher, and we're going to talk about some listener emails that are coming through. You've had a lot of really great correspondence from folks, eh?
Yeah, it's been really nice. As always, we love reading these emails and we love responding to them. And, I think, maybe listeners can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people enjoy hearing about this stuff too, because it's a very, really expands the experience, because everybody is using different equipment. Everybody is typically looking at different things, or at least from different locations. So it's pretty cool just to see and discuss what everybody's doing in the hobby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the questions that I wanted to put on here, and I'm just trying to find it really quick, is somebody had written asking about about our, like, how dark our site is. And I'm having trouble finding it. Let's see. And let's just see. Is this it? No, can't seem to find it really quick. But in the past, Shane, a lot of people have asked about what Bortle, how dark our skies are, like at our they said our favorite sites this time have been asked, like, specifically how or where the sites are and different things of that nature. So maybe where we should start is a little bit about dark sky and the Bortle sky. I didn't put this in the notes, but this is sort of a frequently asked question. But maybe just basically, like, how dark is the site that you use most? Because mostly I think you're a backyard amateur astronomer, strangely enough.
Yeah, well, for sure. The backyard for me gets the most use just because of its convenience factor. I walk out the door with a telescope in hand and I'm observing. So, I get quite a bit done there. Now, again, I usually just go with like the limiting magnitude. And, in my backyard, it's probably, so I'm looking at the Bortle scale right now. It does fall within like that city sky to maybe the suburban urban transition. So Bortle 7 to Bortle 8, somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. I can typically see like Mag 5 stars, naked eye. Like, even from my backyard, I think I'm getting 6 of the Pleiades typically. So, it's not terrible. There's certainly worse skies out there. But the nice thing about where we live, we don't drive very far, and we're in probably Bortle 5 real quick, maybe even to Bortle 4. Yeah. And then when we are, going to our favorite site, which is, I think if I am speaking correctly for both of us, it's Grasslands National Park. And really, like, I don't know how that's not a Bortle 1 for the most part.
It's a Bortle 1, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of really good skies around us. And again, we don't have to drive very far for, pretty good skies. What would you say your cabin is? How dark is it there? Or what's the Bortle there?
Yeah, so the Bortle, I have a couple bones to pick with the Bortle scale, and it's not with John Bortle. He's an amazing amateur astronomer, and he'd written an article back in, I think it was like 2001 or something like that, in Sky and Telescope. People can look it up. And it's a good article, but there's a couple limitations. So, for example, my cabin site or cottage site, or whatever you want to call it, which I did buy in a huge part to be able to do astronomy from, is magnitude 6, so I can see stars down to magnitude 6. However, and that's decently dark. I think anybody would agree that that's like a pretty good sort of decently dark site. Not super dark, but it's like dark enough to do some good amateur astronomy, eh?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it is. Like we've had. Well, I think I've only been out there a couple of times, but it's been really nice. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we were out last night. It was great. You can definitely see like pretty significant light dome from the city, and there's some lights across the water and that sort of thing. But in general, the neighbors out here are amazing. Guy pulled up yesterday. He was trying to maneuver something, and I ran out really quick because I'd sort of parked my car while we were doing some lawn work, and quickly pulled it in because I'm like, "Ooh, got to stay on the good side," because they're so great. No lights on when they're not around for the most part, and really nice folks. But yeah, so it's a magnitude 6 site without any local lights. There's some lights like 100 meters away, and there's some pretty bright lights that are maybe like a few miles away that definitely do detract from the view a little bit. But like I say, overhead, it's magnitude 6. So that means like when you look up into Cygnus, you can see you can see the North America. Maybe, of course, California is part of the North America, but you don't see it. You see that broken off into part of Sky and Perseus. But anyway, it's reasonably dark. It's a pretty dark site. And on the Bortle scale, though, it comes out as a Bortle 4. And my bone of contention, and I mean, maybe I'm just reading things wrong. My bone of contention with it is, like, I was talking to another amateur who lives in a completely different part of the world, and they are also under a Bortle 4. However, like, they can't even see the Milky Way from their location, but they're still marked as a Bortle 4. So how can this be? Well, it's probably because, like, maybe they have a few street lamps like right around them. Like, they're probably in a small community that just has a lot of really localized light pollution. Maybe they have a couple neighbors with really bright yard lights, and suddenly, like, in their little pocket, they are sitting at magnitude 4.5 or 5, and they just can't see the Milky Way, right? I think probably 4.5 is really where you lose it. My backyard is kind of similar because I live on the edge of the city. And if the street lights weren't around and my neighbors were dark coated and there's some industrial buildings nearby, if they had their lights off, and this had happened during the pandemic, and from my backyard, although I couldn't see the Milky Way as good as out here, but I would say it was like Bortle 5, maybe 4.5, and I could see the Milky Way. And honestly, if it was like that all the time, like, I would do a lot of observing from my yard. But then as soon as probably like 24 lights are on, suddenly I really can't see much of any of that. If I sort of shield my eyes from that, I can see the Milky Way, but that's not really a good sky. And I wouldn't say that my sky is like a magnitude 5 or 5.25 sky. I say, yeah, it's not really usable for deep sky observing. If I said I had a 5.25 sky and then people showed up at my house, they would be terribly disappointed. It's just not that bright. So that's kind of the shortcoming of the Bortle scale, in my opinion, and it kind of leaves a lot open for interpretation because unless you're taking a lot of these other things into account, then it doesn't. So I like to use the limiting visual magnitude overhead. If someone says, yeah, it's 6 towards the horizon, it's 4 like it is here, 3.5 maybe in the worst direction. And that gives me a good fix. I can kind of imagine what that site looks like. But if someone says, "Oh yeah, it's a Bortle 4," like, I don't know, like, you might not see the Milky Way, or you might see, like, here we can see detail in the Milky Way. So to me, that's too large a variance. And the skies can be almost as dark. It's just depends on what the localized conditions are, and traffic and all this other stuff. Yeah, too many variables for me to rely too much on the Bortle. It's a good starting point, maybe is the way to put it.
Yeah. Does the sky quality meter made by Unihedron or Unihedron?
Something like that.
Yeah. Do you think that that's a fairly consistent way to compare skies? So for those that don't know what the sky quality meter is, it's this little handheld electronic device. You basically point it at zenith, press a button, and then it gives you a number, usually probably between like 19 and 21 or 22. The higher the number, the darker your sky is. And it goes to 2 decimal points, I believe, to indicate, your sky quality. So do you think that unit would make for a little bit more qualitative comparisons?
Yeah, so maybe there's a way to do it. So I had one for a while. Maybe I still have it. I think I might still have it. So I had one. I was really excited to have it because I wanted to take it down to the Grasslands National Park and do some readings. I thought this would be great, and maybe I'll drive into different parts of the park and do all these different readings, and it'll be just cool to have that. And you can put it on like the National Lake Pollution Abatement Committee, something or other, and maybe other people could do the same. And it would just it would give you like this really sort of objective, quantitative reading, right? I thought, this would be awesome. So I get down there with it, and Rick Huziak is there, who's a well-known amateur astronomer and good friend of ours, and we start playing around with it, and started noticing some of the shortcomings really fast with it. So, yeah, with the Unihedron, it's this little unit. It kind of looks like an old cell phone pager. It's about maybe an inch or two in one direction, and maybe like maybe up to 3 inches in one direction, and a couple inches in the other direction. It's not very big because it sort of fits in the palm of your hand. Has like a sensor. You point at the sky, you press a button, and then it gives you this reading of like 20 point whatever. Anyway, Shane, Rick and I were there late one night, beautifully dark. We're up on two trees, and what we wanted to do is sort of measure the sky, because they were going to put in those full cutoff lights in the town of Val-Marie. So we were measuring the sky, and I was like, what is going on with this? Because sometimes the readings were saying that it was like not that dark even. And I was like, what is happening with this thing? Because it was super good that night. It was an awesome night. And we could actually see the natural sky glow with our eye kind of moving around in the north. And but that thing was, I don't know whether it was picking up the sky glow, and I would point it at the Milky Way and get one reading. Because it says like you're supposed to point it overhead, but what happens when like Cygnus is overhead? So I'm like pointing it at the North American Nebula, and it's giving one reading. I point it 45 degrees off the Milky Way, and I get another reading. So I found like, well, what is the consistency? You need to pick a really dark part of the sky to point it at, but the darker the sky is, the more stars you have and the fewer regions you have to point it. So it's kind of, I mean, maybe if I sort of researched it and kind of, learned about how to use it a little bit more, but I really thought I'd just be able to take the Unihedron out, just point it straight up into the sky, hold it for 10 seconds, and then get a reading, and it would be this awesome reading. But it didn't quite work like that, just because like the Milky Way is so bright from a truly dark site. It was giving like this, this offset reading that wasn't even close, right? So
interesting.
That. Yeah, have you ever played with one of those before?
Yeah. There's one or two people in the Regina Club that had them. So we used them out at the Davin observing site that the local club maintains and owns. I don't recall using it too many other places though. When they first came out, it seemed, everybody was kind of excited about them. And I think they were at the Saskatchewan Summer Star Party. So people were taking a lot of readings. But what I do remember from using it out at Davin is that, like, to me, with something like that, you should be able to do it 10 times, 10 different readings, and basically get very, very similar results.
Right, exactly.
We didn't, like it was kind of bouncing around, and we kept pointing it straight overhead too. So it wasn't like we were really, changing the directions. So now, I guess maybe to make that a little more scientific, we could have put it on a tripod or something more stable than just, pointing it overhead with our arms. But it did seem to have some variance in it. And I think at one point it read like a 21 or something, which, you've been out, the site's gotten brighter over the years, but I don't think it was ever a 21, because that's like, that's a super dark site according to the SQ.
Yeah, right. And kind of on the flip side, in Grasslands, we were pointing it straight up overhead and getting 18.7, I remember, which really isn't that dark at all. And that is for sure 100% a Bortle 1 site. So it just, like, to me anyway, and maybe they had to be calibrated and you'd have to go through some rigmarole, but I just wanted it to work super simple. And hey, I mean, the fact is that you go to Grasslands, you look up and you can see 7th magnitude stars. If you really sit there and concentrate, you can get maybe to 7.5. Well, somebody tells me that, and with the caveat that there's no localized light, you can't see any light domes and all those kind of riders. You go, well, that's a really dark site. Like, I don't need a special objective reading to tell me that. Like, we were down in the East Block there last weekend, and I had like a white N95 mask, and it fell out of my pocket, and it was like glowing on the ground because just like, there's just a little bit of ambient light, but something that's white on the dark ground there just, is just glowing because it's so dark, and any light that's hitting it coming from the Milky Way or whatever is just reflecting off of it. And, just gives this very strange appearance. Like when you start seeing phenomena like that, you're at a dark site. But yeah, I don't know, those sky quality meters. And then of course it becomes one of those contests. Well, my site is darker because, like you said, you were out at this site and it got 21, and then I'm at the grasslands and it's reading 18. Well, then that other site must be darker, even though it's only 20 minutes outside of a large city. Like it just doesn't make any sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So thanks to Roger for that, and hopefully that kind of sheds some light. But basically, Shane's backyard is much better than mine, but he's in a city, and it's just a pretty standard, regular city sky globe where he is, where I'm at right now recording. It's a magnitude 6 site, or a really good Bortle 4. I think probably is the best way to put it. And then grasslands is basically as dark as you can get. You can see natural air glow and stuff. So cool. We got an email from Jim. He writes us I shouldn't say he writes us. He sends us observing reports with a lot of details. It's almost like a club newsletter style.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's usually a PDF document that it just you're almost like riding, in the vehicle with him to the site and observing with him. I really enjoy reading them.
Yeah, I love them too. And he goes into a lot of detail on a lot of the different things he does. Now, just, boy, I hope I don't get this wrong. I'm kind of tired this morning. I was up observing all night. I observed all night last night. But Jim is the person who modified that trailer, right?
I believe so. Yeah. Like it's like I think a kind of a cargo trailer.
Yeah.
But you can store astronomy gear and sleep in there. He may have bought it from somebody else that did the modification. Not that really matters, but it's kind of a neat unit. Yeah,
I remember him writing about that. And sorry if I'm getting a name wrong here or something, but I'm fairly certain. It's just my brain is a little bit fuzzy because I went all night. And so he sent us a recent report. Do you want to read it? Do you want me to read it? I just put an excerpt in.
I can go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's see here. Side note 1. To your suggested binocular resources, I would add Ken Grond's The Next Step, Finding and Viewing Messier Objects. Have you read that book, Chris, or do you have that book?
I have never heard of it. And I was super excited to see a recommendation on a book that I hadn't heard of, because I tend to collect quite a few astronomy books, and so to have another one to add to my collection is pretty exciting. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking it up here. It's on Amazon, and I'm just trying to get a price. Comes in, I think it's probably used or something. Woo, hardcover. It is coming in at $83. Yeah, I think it looks like a photo book of some sort. Yeah, had you ever taken a read of that?
No, I've not. I was unaware of this book until Jim told us about it.
Yeah, and then we also had some conversations with I think it was Peter who was writing me, and we were talking about the Ken Glyn Jones book, Messier's Nebula and Star Clusters. Which is also an excellent older book, which includes just like sketches and some good history on those objects. So a couple of good recommendations there from listeners. Anyway, keep going with these.
Yeah. So Jim had a lot more to say. So on a slightly different note, switching eyeglasses at the telescope and simultaneously using a red light on charts is another struggle for me. Previously, I had to juggle 2 pairs of glasses and the red light every time. I transitioned from distance glasses for Telrad, naked eye navigating, to reading glasses when looking at the charts. Even then, lately, I have needed to get my eyes real close to the charts and use a magnifying glass to see small lettering on charts in dim red light. I even tried scanning my charts and then printing them out on larger paper. And I can certainly relate to this. The glasses that I wear basically every day, like they're progressive lenses. So, they help with reading, but also, just normal seeing. But at night, they're not great for distance. So the stars look terrible. So what I do is I put on my glasses that are non-progressive lenses. And they're well adjusted so that I can see perfectly, distance. So stars look great. The sky looks amazing. I use them at the eyepiece, but I can't read a star chart with these things on. So I take them off, and without them, I can read quite well. So it is a pain, and I don't like it anymore. I guess it's one of the, downsides of aging a little bit. So it is a bit of a challenge. Some things I think that help improve your night seeing is switching from a red light to an amber light. I find it's easier.
Yeah.
And certainly using larger charts, like, I have the original Pocket Sky Atlas from Sky and Telescope, but they've released a jumbo version. So it is the exact same atlas. It's larger. So it's easier to read at night. So,
yeah.
And that's been out of stock for a long time. And I think I got an email a week ago. It's back. So if you want a copy of the jumbo Sky Atlas, it's available now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's some good advice, from both you and Jim. So I haven't gone to progressives yet, but I think I probably need to. And the one thing that I've noticed for a long time is that it's almost like my night vision was ahead on the curve on this one, because I found that under red light, like Jim, I've been struggling to read, to read stuff and whatever. So I have to take my glasses off and then get my face close and kind of look at that. I've seen a lot of observers use the magnifying glass, though. I think that probably works pretty good. I've been thinking about, getting something like that, because my distance vision is fine. Wearing my glasses, it's just the close up stuff, not as good as it once was. So yeah, that's some pretty good advice there.
Yeah. So then Jim goes on to say, juggling the two eyeglasses, red light, magnifier was just too much of a hassle, and too easy to drop or mislay something, and it was usually the glasses. So then he started using a large 4 times magnifying glass and noticed that he could just turn off the red light on the charts on the table, leave the distance glasses on his face, locate eyes closer to the scope than the charts, and finally just insert the 4 times magnifier somewhere in between the charts, which were now at arm's length. And then he says, that way I get better views of the small print on charts and can just remove the magnifier to see full page chart views, or just look up to see an in focus sky. So for now on, when reading small print on charts, I will leave the distance glasses on, lean the red light against the charts, and just insert the magnifier between my eyes and the charts.
Yeah.
I may just leave the reading glasses in the car or keep them in the little belt case I often wear. So that's great advice.
Pretty good.
And
he goes, that's still, that's
okay,
his too, yeah.
So then he says, listening to the actual astronomy podcast, Binocular Edition, and to Don McHoltz's episode number 124. Number 124 of Looking Up with Don. Motivates me to try another run at the Virgo Galaxy cluster. My records indicate that I last successfully star hopped through the Virgo Galaxy cluster at the turn of the century. Since then, I am never successful identifying the individual galaxies. I see smudges in the eyepieces, but cannot positively identify which was which. Try as I might, I just never seem to successfully identify the objects in 6 Coma Berenices area. In Crossan and Tyrion's binocular astronomy, they mention that the galaxies are barely non-stellar in 10 by 50 binoculars. Will it be easier for me with the Canon 15 by 50s? Perhaps. The 15 by 50s give just enough magnification to make galaxies a non-stellar appearance, but still a wide enough field of view to understand the relative positions of multiple Messier galaxies in one binocular field of view. On my bookshelf right next to Crossan's book is Ken Graune's The Next Step, Finding and Viewing Messier Objects. Perhaps I will have better luck taking on the Virgo Galaxy cluster if I use the wide field of view in binoculars combined with Graune's Virgo cluster chart. Remember that the 40 millimeter Pentax combined with the 10-inch f6 teeter gives the scope its maximum 1.8 degree field of view at 38 times magnification.
That's nice.
Yeah, it is really nice. If I add 1 degree and 2 degree circles to chart T, will that also make navigating the Virgo Galaxy cluster easier? Perhaps also add straight lines between the naked eye visible stars, so I know where to put my Telrad for M85, M100, M86, M84, and M49. While hopping across the Virgo Galaxy cluster in the binos are my widest field of view with the teeter become easy, or at the very least practical. Only after a clear night at the HAS dark site will I know for sure. Yeah, and just maybe a quick reference back to the Sky and Telescope Pocket Atlas. In the appendices, it has a focus chart on the Virgo Galaxy cluster. So it definitely helps or aids in navigating that part of the sky, because it's wild how many galaxies are there, and it's pretty easy to sort of get lost and struggle a bit to identify which galaxies you are looking at.
Yeah, no, exactly. When was the last time you took a look at the Virgo Galaxy cluster?
2 weeks ago at Grasslands.
Nice.
Yeah, when Mike and I were observing, we were panning through Coma Berenices and Virgo. So, there's a pile of galaxies in both of those constellations. And we were having a blast.
Yeah, we did a mini version of that last night. Very, very mini, and just took a revisit and just did a cruise through. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, awesome.
Pretty good. Yeah. And I think you and Eric were chatting a bit, and Eric was saying that he was glad you're able to get out to Grasslands, and mentioned that M53, which is a globular cluster, is it in Boats, or is it over in Canisman TC? It's on the border of Boots and Canisman TC, M53, right? It's globular, something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of in that general area. I thought it was closer to Coma. Let's see here. M53 globular. What does the internet tell us? It's in Coma Berenices.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I knew it's sort of on the border there. Because I think M3 is in Boats, and then M53 is a little bit further over. Anyway, and he was just saying that he forgets to stop by that one, about how he enjoys the summer observing without having to put on 5,000 layers of clothes. There with you on that. And he's going down to the Nebraska Star Party in July. So that's exciting.
Yeah. That is super cool. And part of the correspondence was that we asked if Eric would be interested in coming on to the podcast when he gets back from that Star Party to talk about that and just, general observing. Eric has a 8-inch suitcase Dobsonian, and he was that concept, as well as the Quest Star concept, was the motivation for me to do my observatory in a suitcase. And he also has is it a 17-inch Dob or something like that? I can't remember the make of it, but yeah. So he's got some big aperture. It would be great to have a conversation with him, and he's excited for it too. But anyway, I'll let you finish up his email.
Yeah, I guess he's got some family down in Valentine, which I know is that's actually where they do the talks at the Star Party, in some AC facility they have there. And yeah, I've always been curious to go down to that one, and have thought about it for a long time. So yeah, I would definitely like to get down to the Nebraska Summer Star Party, and that would be pretty nice. And you get 10 degrees more sky, I think, you sit down there, so that's really nice too.
Yeah, that would be wonderful for us, north of 50 people. Yeah,
very cool. Very cool. Ethan sent us a note here. Did you want to read? He's got an interesting epic observing adventure for his first analog view through a telescope coming up.
Yeah, this is cool. So just a reminder that Ethan has the Unistellar robotic imaging telescope, and does a lot of cool things. We've talked quite a bit about his projects. So this time Ethan writes, "Hi, Chris and Shane. First up, some exciting news. I'm going to be observing at the Mount Wilson Observatory in Pasadena at the end of July at both the 60-inch and the 100-inch telescopes, which is
Nice.
incredible.
Mm.
So he said, I signed up for one of their public group viewing nights and will be flying down from Oakland for the occasion. I really only observed the sky through my Unistellar 4.5-inch scope, so I'm preparing myself to be completely gobsmacked by what I'm able to see through a world-class professional scope, let alone ones that have played such huge roles in astronomical history. The 100-inch is the one Edwin Hubble and Milton Humason
Yep.
used in the late 1920s to measure the expansion of the universe. So I'll be sure to report back on the experience. On an unrelated note, I decided to write up a quick handy-dandy primer on telescopes for absolute beginners like me, covering aperture, focal length, focal ratio, and magnification, what they mean, why they're important, and what's better suited for astrophotography versus planetary or lunar observing versus dark sky observing. I've never been able to find a single source that covers all of the above in in a concise way, so I decided to make one. And since I know you have episodes geared towards beginners and helping them get started, I thought you might find this useful since it's coming from a beginner.
Yep.
Then you just said it sounds like both of you had some great observing up at Grasslands. I'm jealous, and he signs off.
Yeah, I always find articles by like somebody in his astronomy journey pretty interesting because, like, from my perspective anyway, the one thing that I find is that as I write things through, it allows me to kind of think through some things and solidify some things and answer maybe some of the gaps that I have in my own knowledge. So I really appreciate somebody else who's sort of going down that path, because it can be a little bit of a challenge. And then the one thing I really like, did you go and take a look at the page?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is
love
awesome.
The little like GIFs and images that he's got there.
Yeah, it's sort of like he took, it's almost like little memes and he sort of interspersed them throughout the article. So it's very entertaining. I think people should go and take a look. The URL is kind of long though. Are you able to tweet that out?
Yeah. I'll tweet that out. So if you're interested in seeing what Ethan wrote, go to @actualastronomy on Twitter, and it will be in our timeline.
Yeah. Anyway, it's very cool. I think that's amazing that he's going to take a look through some bigger telescopes. But yeah, I'd be curious to know, like, so in that general area that he's in that general San Francisco region, that's where the San Francisco Sidewalk Astronomers still operate out of, which I think were founded in part by John Dobson and those few other people that were involved, and set up their telescopes, on street corners and that sort of thing. Let people take a look. I think I'd be pretty keen to go and line up with some of those folks, because I think they have some pretty large apertures, and they go to some of the local state parks and set that gear up, and it'd be pretty cool to meet up with some of those amateurs as well, I think. So yeah, there's some neat opportunities, and having spent a winter in that area as well, I certainly have an affinity for that region. Nice conditions, and pretty dark. I got a spider here. Let's see.
Well, and I gotta say,
there we go. All right.
Yikes. Chris is bad. Chris is geez. Battling nature over there.
Oh man. Between them. Yeah. Go ahead.
But yeah, the like, I can't imagine visual observing through a 60-inch and a 100-inch telescope. That's incredible. Can't wait to hear how it goes for him. Yeah,
spoiled. Just be careful, because remember I took this person out once, and we went out to the darkest place that is in Nova Scotia, and it's like a Bortle one, but you don't see as many stars as we do in Grasslands because it's at sea level. But we went down there. He had a 10 or 12-inch, and it was the best night that I ever saw in Nova Scotia. It was so good, and it was his first time at a dark sky site. And mostly he just observed from like a town that he lived in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so good. And we're looking at M13 and all. I remember looking at like the Milky Way, and I mean, looking at dark lanes, and it was just amazing. And I think it almost like ruined him for astronomy, right? Because, it was like every other night after that, no matter where he went, was, not going to be typically like that. Like that was kind of like, oh yeah, well that's good. And I'm like, no, it's really good. This is like the best night. But yeah, that guy, I don't think he stayed with astronomy, unfortunately. So yeah. yeah, people should really get out to the dark skies and get out there lots to see the variability in the conditions, and then you'll eventually, after years, get some really good nights.
Mhm.
All right, so we had a note here from let's see, this is from Robert, and he wrote, "Hi Chris and Shane, hope all is well with you both." And it is. Thank you so much for asking. Just wanted to pick your brain on dielectric diagonals. He says, my scopes are a Meade ST80. Yeah, I have one of those. It's a little f5 achromatic refractor. He's got the Astrotech AT80ED, which is f7. That should be a beautiful little telescope. I also have an ED80 f7 that a friend has had for like 2 years. And he's got a little 90 millimeter Maksutov, which is f13.8. He said, I have read many pros and cons on whether to use a prism or mirror diagonal in these different types of telescopes, and it's kind of driving me crazy. Some say prisms are better, some say mirrors are better. And he said, then I hear you should pair accessories with lenses with telescopes that also have lenses, same for mirrors with mirrors. Drives me crazy. Any comments on this? Or am I making a big deal over nothing? I have both types of diagonals. And he says, thanks, guys. Clear skies. Keep up the good work on the podcast. Thank you so much. So what do you think, Shane? Prism or mirror diagonal?
Both. So he's covered. The general high level overview of both of these is if you are probably about f7 to f8 or slower, the prisms typically work better. They'll control scatter better. They'll reveal color, contrast. All of that kind of stuff is just typically better with the prism at longer focal lengths.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a faster scope, then you use mirrors because if you're below f7, a prism can induce color and other aberrations that you just don't want. So the mirrors are typically better at that point. There's been a lot of research done on this on cloudy nights. And I think, if I remember correctly, Bill Paoloni, who we often reference, he did a big study on diagonals. And he had a bunch of mirror diagonals. He had a bunch of prism diagonals. And I think he had a couple like super unique, like quartz or like gold. I can't remember. So, you know, he's always very scientific in his approaches when he does these types of reviews. It's well worth the read if you're interested in it. I think if you just search like Bill Paoloni diagonal review, it should pop up. And that's where I got my information from that I just shared about where to use prisms versus mirrors. Yeah.
I think in general, though, like people shouldn't worry about it too much. I think that these are pretty subtle differences. In fact, I got to say that, you know, probably getting good eyepieces are going to yield better results than these sort of things. Once you've kind of fine tuned them all, then yeah, maybe. But you know, I have the prism, and I got to admit, I just use it sort of on special occasions when the conditions are really good. I might put it in, or if I'm trying to do something really specific, or but I'm not running it all the time.
Yeah. One other side note too, if you ever get into bino viewing, prisms are typically more desirable because they have a shorter light path through them than a mirror diagonal does. And when you're bino viewing, every millimeter counts in that light path. So you want it as short as possible. So most bino viewers will be using prisms.
Cool. All right. Anything else on that one?
That is all. Should I read the next
go
one
for
from
it.
Peter?
Read Peter. Yeah.
So Peter writes quite often. So he says, hi again, Chris and Shane. I meant to comment on the issues you raised about including more information on the website. So that's our website, actualastronomy.com. And I really appreciated his email. He says, over the years, whenever I've been asked about websites that you have to maintain yourself, my message is the same. Simplicity is your friend. Complexity is the enemy.
Agreed.
Yes. And that has been our approach almost from day one.
Just put the period there and say, we agree, Peter. Thank you so much. And that's it.
The Actual Astronomy podcast adopts the KISS principle in all aspects, which is keep it simple, stupid, or, you know, anyway.
Or keep it simple, Shane. Come on.
Yeah, keep it simple.
I'm just kidding.
Yes. Thanks for the reminder.
Occurred to me.
Yeah, that works.
But
So
you're
Peter
not.
goes on to say, first of all, for me, the great value of the podcast is listening to you both and sometimes guests talk about the hobby of astronomy from a perspective steeped in decades of expertise. I don't know if I'd say expertise, but we have experience.
We do it. We go out and we do it. I mean, that's what we're doing. We have conversations. We make a mistake. We appreciate people who correct us, so it's all good.
Exactly. It has completely changed my approach. For instance, I very much doubt that I would have invested so much into learning about and buying good refractors without your influence. It must be already a major commitment to provide 2 episodes a week, and you're wise to approach any expanded effort with caution. So basically, I wouldn't change a thing, with perhaps one exception. This would be to post transcripts of the podcast on the website, which we've heard this request a few times. I forgot to hit the button
today. I was going to do this, but I'm too tired.
So anyway, he says that would be helpful in going back for particular pieces of information from an episode. But it could be that the time taken to prepare a readable transcript is excessive. And he's 100% right. Like we could easily post the transcripts because
it's not great.
No. And like, to listen to us is one thing, but to read the babble is a whole nother thing. And I guess you could do a control F, to search the transcript things, but I think it would be a very frustrating experience to read it as is. And then for us to go through and actually edit a transcript so it is readable is just not going to happen because we don't have the time for that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Remember I tried to do that. Because that was something that I thought we would do. And we set it up to do that originally. And then I sat down to do it and I'm like, Shane, I can't do this. I just, I spent like 3 or 4 hours doing one. And it was just, and the transcriptions are getting better. I've noticed that they're improving on Zoom. It's just not quite there yet. And then the notes, like the show notes that we use are, I don't know, like they're not fully fleshed out, right? So I put stuff in there like, we have a special guest today, but I know I'm going to say it's a giant hornet that snuck into the house. But if you just read the notes, you're going to be like, well, they never even refer to the special guest again. What's going on, right? Like, I'm not getting it.
And my notes are even higher level. I'm usually like observed sun.
Exactly. And then you talk about what it is. So it's kind of, it's sort of good and bad. Like we're there with you. And the good is that the way that we do it enables us to very easily do a couple episodes a week. So that's the good part. The bad part is it kind of makes it a little bit more of a challenge to put additional things in. Like what would be really cool is if we could set something up where people, and I don't know if people would do this, but it would be cool if we could set up so that people would like post the stuff like as a forum comment instead of writing us directly. But then there's a problem with that where like we've kind of struck up sort of some, sort of pen pal type friendships with many of the listeners, and they probably wouldn't put that stuff in a public forum because it's like, hey, like how's like the move going? And it's not really astronomy related, but I really enjoy having that level of communication and correspondence with listeners that have written me. So it's kind of it's sort of difficult to kind of go down some of those paths. So I don't know. Yeah, we continue to think about it, navigate it, and we appreciate the feedback for sure.
Yeah. We do try to keep it simple. And one thing we've mentioned, I think a couple times now on previous podcasts is we also don't want to try to reinvent like Cloudy Nights. There's a great forum that already exists. It's well moderated. It's very mature, and it's an excellent repository of information and a great place to correspond with other astronomers. And I think if we were to try to do something like that, again, I don't think we have the cycles to moderate.
No,
there's a lot that goes on there. So we'll just keep making the podcast, and if there's opportunities for us to enhance it with some other stuff, either through the website or maybe other channels, we'll look into it for sure. And if it fits go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say sometimes the technology like advances, and because I know like Peter made a suggestion, I'm going to go and check out the link for maybe better transcriptions, and because we do get like generous Patreon support from the users. like some of the stuff that we've bought and added on, which really just enhanced like the audio aspects, like I'm using a different headset today, we were able to do. And so that's like the good part. So if stuff is coming out that could be incorporated easily, even if there's a small fee, then we can definitely jump on some of those aspects. But I think we've taken this in some pretty good directions to be able to produce a couple shows. And we don't have like some of the other shows I looked at, I'm like, oh, it's really cool that this podcast is this and that podcast is that. But all of those podcasts have a producer. And once you start putting in more and more people into it, which we probably could find people willing to do it. There's a lot of great people out there. I think that we would create a complexity in trying to line up yet another person to coordinate with to record episodes, because sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge, even just with two of us.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, no, it's very very nice that we do get so many listener emails. That was I think one of the biggest surprises, because I certainly wasn't expecting that people would write us, and it's really great to read everybody's observations.
Yeah, no, for sure. I enjoy it a lot, and it's just a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun just recording it, but in between sessions, I really like reading the emails that we get. It's great.
Yeah, I also enjoy like going out and observing. And then sometimes, like Chef Ozzy wrote us today about, I think it's like a possible meteor shower from a new comet. I got it from the Comet Holmes that kind of disintegrated there 14 or 15 years ago. And I'm like, oh, I hadn't heard about that. I got to go take a look and see if that's actually an opportunity to make some meteor shower expectations, for folks. And I just like that kind of stuff, like things that I otherwise wouldn't have thought of or gone and looked at. Like last night I went and looked at the Virgo cluster because a couple of people had mentioned it in their correspondence, or different things of that nature. It just really kind of enhances my own astronomy. And then hopefully by hearing me ramble on in my tired state today, hopefully it's helpful to other people. But as time goes on and I am well rested, then I think the experience kind of starts to come through a little bit better.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah, pretty tired today though. Let me tell you, I wasn't sure.
You should go have a nap.
I wasn't sure. I was like, should I record? Rebecca's like, yeah, you are not doing good today. Like I get out of bed and I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel good. That was a long session. What I've been doing before is like earlier in the week is I was sleeping and then getting up and observing, and that's fine. And I'm okay doing that. But I was kind of getting a little tired after 3 or 4 nights of doing that. And then, it's great. I always love observing with other people. And so I was really excited. Mike was coming out, and I never bothered to really sleep. And so I was already a bit on the tired side. We'd done a bunch of yard work and stuff. And then, to stay up all night. Yeah. So this is me in a very tired state. That's very good.
Right on.
Good stuff. Anything else to add to this? Or what are we at? 200? Is this 229?
229, yeah.
229. Next week is 230. We should have a special celebratory cake or pineapple souffle or something.
Well, if you're making pineapple souffles, I'll come over and we'll record in person for the first time ever.
We should do one. It would have been good today. There's a little bit of wind and there's an awful lot of songbirds. But if we get a still day, and once they finish working on the deck here, then it'd be great to come out and throw the laptop on and we can record and you can hear all the birds. I don't know, you probably can't hear them now, but there's an awful lot of birds here and they're chirping and singing and the lilacs are blowing in the breeze, and be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. All right, well, thanks, Shane. Thanks everybody for listening. And as always, we're always really excited to hear your observing notes and emails, see what people are up to. Because we are going into perpetual twilight tonight, and that means that we will not have dark skies again until the second week of July, here around July 7th or 10th or something like that. So we might get a little bit of observing in, but until that time, please send us your observing notes because we'll be relying on them a little bit more than usual.
Thank you everyone for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.